Hello and welcome to the Rogue Monkey podcast and episode 75. My name is Kevin Pickard and I host the show that shares insightful stories to motivate, inspire and support you on your journeys through both work and life. We're now on our third episode of season 10 and what a response we've had to last week's conversation with Premier League official Dan Robertson. I think it highlights the reason we do these podcasts, to get behind the scenes viewpoints and insights that from the outside we would never see. In this week's episode we are again doing exactly that, but we're heading into the world of the military and sharing a story from a man who has been part of one of the most well-known teams on the planet, the SAS. Our guest is Krish Thapa, a world-class mountaineer and one of the most spiritually aware guests that we've ever had. From growing up in the Himalayas, we explore his journey through the Gurkhas and eventually through selection into the SAS, becoming the head of the mountain troops. He has scaled Mount Everest himself back in 2017 and is currently leading an expedition to train, prepare and guide 2 double amputee veterans to the top of Everest in 2023. His passion for integrating ancient lessons into his modern leadership makes him a truly inspirational person to speak to, and we're extremely grateful to Krish for sharing some time with us today. Just before we get started, don't forget to give us a quick follow across all the socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch our interviews as well as see bonus content. All these links are in the show notes. Okay. Let's get into it and episode 75 of the Rogue Monkey podcast. Krish Thapa, the journey of the ex-SAS mountain leader and high altitude mountaineer. Hello, Krishna. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you, Kevin. And it's my pleasure and honor to be on your podcast.
I'm extremely honoured to have you on, and we've got a very exciting story coming up for our listeners and viewers. So perhaps you can give us, I guess, a quick introduction as to who you are and perhaps your headline journey so far.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Krish Thapa, born in Himalayas and joined the Gurkhas. After 4 years, one of the first joined the SAS from the Gurkhas. And served in the SAS almost 18 years, and now last 5 years I'm involving with all the PTSD and double amputees, all the differently able person to achieve and transcend their limitation through the adventures and mindset.
Fantastic. Well, plenty of stories for us to dive into there, but I'm really curious as to where did this passion for helping people start? Because that's obviously what you're doing now, but I would imagine that's something you've had for a long time.
Yeah, it's to be honest, it's very interesting even for me as well. It triggered me when I was in war in Iraq, maybe 15, 20 years back on the target. I realized actually what we perceive through our sense perception is not truth. It's just the opinion, and it is the sense perception what we perceive. But when we go beyond our perception, and that is actually to find the truth, and that led me back to my childhood in Himalayas, when I grown up as a spiritual guy and as a monk. And just finding my way back, not as in a life, but way of living the process and the spiritual part of my life. And I realized actually, rather than just we modern human, academic education and culture is driven for the ego and expansion of our body, mind. And maybe why don't we, rather than take everything from the community and from the society, can we do rather than just take and maybe give or share our passion and our experience to those who need most, and maybe make a life difference.
Fantastic. And I think there's probably a lot of people who are kind of ignorant to perhaps the different cultures that exist in different parts of the world. And finding, I guess, that balance now as an adult is something, by the sounds of it, that kind of tracks all the way back to your childhood. So could you just take us through a little bit of what it was like growing up in the Himalayas? Because a lot of people who grew up perhaps in Western worlds and haven't particularly traveled actually perhaps can't even get their heads around what that must have been like. So could you take us through a little bit of that?
Absolutely. I think one of the most, even for me, fascinating is, like over my 45 years of my life, I spend more like, almost 30 years in UK now. But my childhood is, like 17, 18 years. The way we grown up in the Himalayas is in our culture. So we believe. So I still remember vividly when I wake up every morning. We had a cold shower and had to worship the trees, had to worship the stone, has to worship the snakes and dog. It's just the basic, lifestyle. And still Himalayas, still the 85% of the population still goes to the temple, or so we call church, or some sort of, believe in our spiritual, kind of faith. And we still have something, energy or something we burn, we came in the earth is beyond our limitation. We need to understand this one. So we put our value, and then our birth is through our ancestor and through the nature. Hence, I think we kind of respect everything. And this is my childhood, growing up, spending the time worshiping the temple, just going through all this ritual and traditional.
So there's a lot of gratitude that seems to be kind of in that, in terms of actually just appreciating everything around you, and certainly something in modern Western life, I think that gets lost quite a lot. So one of the things that I'm really curious about is, how do you think those skills that you perhaps honed in those first 10, 15 years in the Himalayas have kind of now benefited you all the way through, I guess, the rest of your professional journey?
Absolutely. I think one thing I like to share is, if I don't have any understanding of spiritual or my understanding of my traditional culture, I would understand here today. So that powerful, but even though we human, I think we kind of have that sense, or so we call the soul, so we call our ancestor, we still, our body, and like I said, like how many, 1,000 years, my grand mom and dad color and skins, and then the color of my hair is still with me. Those are the things we can't perceive through our perception, because, for example, in the Western society, we just give 5 senses. Yeah, 5 senses. We kind of, this is where we kind of driven, and this is all the academic education, all the social, how do people think about me, is all our perception, all our perception through our senses. But in the Himalayas, through the culture, we believe we have maybe more than 36 perception, how we perceive the energy and the information from the universe to our body. So those are, even though we can't see or we can't hear, touch or feel, but there is a tremendous subtle energy and tremendous number of we are perceiving through our body. So for that, which we can't see us through our senses, but we still have to have aware and conscious about that. So these are the fundamental practice, I would say, we follow in the Himalayas.
See, this is fascinating, because it's, if we strip it back a little bit and actually talk, it almost feels like an extra strength, an extra element that's actually supported you, and something that, I guess, discounting all of that early stuff to get into the SAS in the first place, the level of strength and resilience you have to possess and have honed is something that obviously is extremely high. And what we're talking about here is actually from being born all the way up to that point where you left the Himalayas, was actually honing that, an extra strength, if you like. So do you feel like that's kind of served you well moving forwards?
100%, Kevin. But one of the things I also realize is through my own, like I'm research through the culture where I come back. This is where I'm spending a lot of time with now, is the whatever we achieve in our life, like in a very brief amount of time we're living in this earth, is we actually enhance our perception, our senses. So in order to become, doctors, engineers, so like, or the SAS, or like any of the subject, you are enhancing your certain perception, or your senses is so much honed in, so much you became good at it to achieve whatever you want to achieve, your dream, for living. But for that, I think for that is, even though we as a human and how much we're aware of our inner soul or inner energy, that is the spiritual, that is the spirit we need to kind of more tap in. So what that means is, if we have more understanding through beyond our perception. For example, I just give you the three examples. So one is a different kind of knowledge. So one is we gather all the, like academic education, social and culture through our perception, either reading or hearing or, by touching. All these things we gather and information, then we become very good at it. But every day our sense perception, the way we see is, like, let's say, for example, sun rays in the morning, sunset in the evening. This is just for the senses. But for a fact, sun is neither set, neither, rays. It's always there. We as a earth is going rotating around, and we think what I'm saying, that is a different one level of knowing, because you know beyond your perception. And then the other third level of knowledge or knowing is that when you born, if you give the young baby, 2 years old baby, if something to eat, they never put their food in the eyes or ear. They always put in the mouth. This is the intuitive knowledge we have, which is beyond our memories, beyond our knowing, and this is the intuitive knowledge. More we have able to access, these are now we're going through the beyond our sense perception, because like I said already, what we hear is only the people's opinion, it's not the truth. What we see is we already condition our body, and we see the way we see. But if we don't condition, and if we don't put any memories and any our knowledge, then we see the truth. How can we go into so in deeper? Is we have to be more like silence, quiet, and try to hone in more and more and deeper, so we can able to touch with the soul in a way we touch with the universe and with anyone else. That's how we can, expand our knowledge and, broaden our, ability to understand each other and living in a compassion way.
And I think that's fascinating, because generally speaking, a huge amount of people would be able to say they could think of big decisions that they've had to make in their life where they've said, I can't explain why, it just felt right. And they actually have this kind of inner guides that they do tap into, but very occasionally. Whereas listening to your journey and some of the adventures and expeditions you've been on, you sound like you live by that. Like every single day, you're in tune with that and aware of it. And that kind of, again, it gives you that extra level of focus and strength to actually go on and do some unbelievable things in your life. So at what point did it go from, I guess, being obviously a child and growing up in that part of the world to becoming part of your adult life? Was there a working moment where you felt even more aware that actually it was really helping you? What was that like?
Yes, definitely. I think like I said, the triggered me was, and I gave the example, the specific example was in the war zone, when we, hunting for the, like our mission. And after the mission, one of the girl and came and grabbed on the target, came and grabbed my hand, and she's looking at me and crying, oh, why are you destroying all these, people and places? And then we just saying, oh, because they were doing this, which is, like not the right thing to do. And then the girl looked at me and then said, oh, see, she is a leader of this place. We treat her as a god in this society, and that makes me ask question myself. Oh, what we see in our own perception, we say bad or good, is someone else's perception is she's a god. And straight away asking myself question, hang on a minute, why we are like not looking at in a broader way? Why do not understanding like going, can we understand more sort of in a humanity way rather than my perception, my religion, my color? That start asking me a question, and then I think, how can we find the truth? How can we find the, not listen to the people opinion, not listening to the people culture or religions? Can we go beyond that and find the truth? And that then that, to be honest, that led me to my kind of finding the who am I, why am I here, what we are doing, and what is the reason, what is the purpose of us human here. And then that's what I realized. Then the culture in Himalayas, then like the honing in me to find the truth soul, or so we call the chitta in the Sanskrit word in Nepal, is that neither we are body, neither we are mind. This is all we gather from outside, for the temporary loan in a way. As you know, Kevin, I think every cell in our body is, born and die, so many thousands every day, but we are not aware of that. We're only aware of our sense, perception, and thought. But also when you go there, but the thought and then our sensory perception collab together. Once they collab together, we focus more energy. Then either it's going to be a good or the happiness, so-called, or the bad, or so we call depression, anxieties. Minute we can tune in there and realize, and everything will be dismissed, basically.
I find this really, really interesting, again, because there's one of the things we're talking about there, I guess, is empathy and the ability to actually put ourselves in other people's shoes. And I guess there's a sense of irony in me asking this, because the whole point of the podcast was to give people insights into different points of views. And the story of a rogue monkey is somebody who provides the alternate point of view, a different perspective on things. And I think actually it's incredible that you have to get to a point where you're in a war zone for actually that for people to understand that. And that, especially given the length of service that you had, you obviously went to a lot of different countries and different parts of the world, met lots of different cultures. So I would imagine your muscle for empathy is pretty strong, being able to see things through lots of people's eyes.
Absolutely. I think that's why one of the things I realized, even the, like British military MOD are so good at now, is to, we need to, I think we need to, like travel and adventure, or putting you to the, pushing you the limit, whatever shape or form. Everyone has a limitation, physical limitation, mental limitation, and spiritual limitation. But so what I mean is, if you're going to different places, this is also some form of crossing the limitation, your body, mind, and spiritual. Once you put that limited, and then you overcome, somehow, like psychological, physical, and emotional overcome, it is only I think it's definitely do good for all the human beings. And seeing this and then doing that and all this thing, realizing is a great word, kind of, this is where I triggered this, like this point, and then how can I enhance that? Maybe go, like I said, go beyond our perception and realizing the truth, finding the truth. And actually, one of the things I found is, whatever people say, whatever community or society says, actually is our own reflection, isn't it? Whatever I'm saying now is you making a meaning, yourself. I'm not, giving you the meaning, but you are the one meaning, and you are the dictionary of your life. So for that is the only way to find out the truth for yourself. And finding the truth yourself is you're able to find the truth of universe, or finding the truth of, everyone else. So that is, then we have to dive in within ourselves. And the only way to dive in within ourselves is to more sort of spiritual, like understanding how our sense perception work, how our body work, how we perceive the energy and all the, academic education through our perception, and then go beyond that, to find ourselves so that we can reflect whatever other people saying in a good for our own lives.
So talking a little bit about reflection there, what was that period like transitioning out of the military role into more of the mountaineering and exploration roles that you're doing now? What was that period like? Because we've had a few former military people on the podcast before, and everything from identity to structure to finding, I guess, purpose. What was that period of life like to you? And I guess that kind of starts leading us up to where we are now.
Yeah. Absolutely, Kevin. I think it is challenging. It's demanding, especially I think us as a human being. What we call is once we living our life in the box, everything is there, and our instinct, our body, human is we don't want to jump into the unknown. We don't want to be in uncomfortable position. This is how our human body actually mechanically organized working to survive. So in order to come out of our survival situation and going to the new environment, it's always, especially our body don't want to go, but that's why we have to have a positive mindset, and then we have to go beyond beyond our belief and beyond our trust. Sometimes cross that line. It is the spiritual. It is the spirit of your own understanding and gut feeling. You can do it. And like I said, I had a very tough time. And I know decision is very hard because I serving like almost 27 years. And now I want to go and just climb and help the people. It is if I'm honest with you, it's stupid, isn't it? Because you're paying, MOD is paying for your money and living a kind of comfortable life, but you kind of no money, no job. I want to just go and help the people. It's very hard. But however, our once you have a devotion, once you have a life, because once you choose your life, regardless whatever we do, but you want to follow your dream. And I decided, right, I think in my limited time, whatever I gather and experience knowledge over 27 years with the British MOD and Army and SAS, now my job, next 20, 30 years is to transcend the limitations, share my knowledge for the lives which matter most, more than myself. I think I have no regrets. I love every day, all I have done and experience. Now my job is what I can is to share that knowledge and experience those who need the most. And I find maybe our veteran communities, those who are, still sometimes it's hard to, just come out from the bed for them. But, just show them the way, guide them, and then, everyone needs help at some point in our life. Maybe just you're present with the love and compassion enough for them to live one more breath and happily. This is kind of my mission at the moment.
And there's a real sense of purpose there, and I think that for me is, again, absolutely fascinating, because I think a lot of people struggle with transition from one role to another, one job to another, whatever it is, because they don't necessarily have that purpose. And it's interesting you mentioned about being in that secure role with your income and all of those sorts of things. But actually, if that's not what drives you, then actually that's not going to satisfy that need. If you're chasing money, if you like, then actually those things would perhaps be something that you go, well, that's what I'm here for, therefore I'll stay where I am. Whereas when you're searching for something deeper and to help other people, I guess that movement into where you are now probably felt more comfortable because you knew exactly what you wanted to do. You wanted to go out there and support people, because going on that military journey, and again, speaking to veterans previously, there is a huge lack of support out there. So actually the veteran community would welcome people with your purpose and your mission and your values with open arms, because it's so needed. And that's, I guess, a really good place for you to be when you're coming out of such a long career into something else, knowing that what you're doing next is so valuable and powerful.
Yes, absolutely. I think I think first thing is like um, you just mentioned slightly, like identity. The identity is all all our experience, knowledge, money, and our academic education is only work for our identity, whatever you identify with. And in the more in a deeper term, whatever people identify you, that is not you. For example, if I look at myself and say, oh, I'm a boy from or let's say I'm a boy from Himalayas, monk and Gurkhas and SAS. The minute I identify myself that, then I start suffer. Yeah. So for that it is okay. It is okay whatever the people identify me or carry me, or whatever the people have, whatever the people identify, that's okay, because this is how the how the humanity work. But however, you as an individual, once you identify with that, then you basically are heading for the depression and anxiety. For that is to, that's why, because it's all this perception, isn't it? Whatever people think I am, it's a perception. But inner myself, my inner energy or my inner spirit of my life is not that. This is all I gather from outside. This is all I, my work and then my time through the perception, my body, then people identify that. Then for that is that we have to, understand and what is the true purpose of our life. And then one of the best thing we can do is that our human purpose is to live, survive, and help each other, expand, evolve through the generation. The minute we are step out for that, because what is identity does is that, you always want to expand, you want a big body, you want a more bigger body, you have a small house, you want a bigger house. And these are the money, and then this identity is never going to stop. It's like how we can, discipline, how can we control this expansion and find the true, as a humanity, is that's what the understanding of the, understanding yourself in a way. It's not the, it's not like religions or the, finding the, PhD or master. It's just how you understand how our body work, how our human, like true soul energy is good for us, to finding that is that the true kind of happiness, and then finding ourselves.
And I think that's something perhaps a lot of people have gone on that journey over the last few years through the pandemic, because I can only speak from my own experience, but I know in that first 3 or 4 months when I was stuck at home, my background is sport. I've done sport since I can remember. And when all of that stopped and that connection that I had with people stopped, there was a huge question mark over, well, who am I? And I think too often we define ourselves by one single external thing. And when that external thing is taken away, we cannot cope. And actually, what you're saying there is actually finding around your internal values and being in touch with your personal self, and not any other labels externally, gets to a point where actually you can live a much more satisfying life, because you're not defined by something that is outside of you. And I think too often in society, certainly in the Western world, that's how we live. How big is your house? How high are you up the ladder of your job or your car or your salary or whatever it is? And actually life's deeper than that. And I think you're kind of exploring that with us today.
Absolutely. 100%, Kevin. I think this is where the, if we look at the, one example is in the Western world, in America, 85% people live in the medication, and then regardless, what I'm giving the example is not like, that's why it's not your job. It's not your job you making satisfying or life purposeful. It's not your, house. It's not your wife. It's not your daughter, kids. It's you. And then if you look at the exactly same opposite way, in the Himalayas, actually 85% people are poor, but there are no medication. They live in the healthy and happiest life. That's why I think it is important to evolve through the science, and it is important to do the job. I became Gurkhas, I became SAS. This is my job, and I achieve what I dream to achieve. It is always great to have a dream and desire and vision to work on. But the important part we're missing in the modern society, modern academic education itself, where is that bigger, the minute we have the bigger gap between the self and internal, your own self, and then whatever the vision you have and mission you want to achieve, the bigger the gap, then that's where the, like thought and our sense perception and thought became, and we spend more time and we spend a lot of energy and emotion that became detached within ourselves and then whatever we want to achieve. So for that is the biggest problem we have at the moment in society, and that is the biggest problem even the veteran world, because we detach from ourselves soul towards something which we are not.
And if we take, I guess, the mission you're on now leading into the expedition next year, do you feel that you're helping people that have perhaps gone through unbelievably traumatic experiences refines that meaning and actually not be defined by the fact they've lost their legs or any of the other horrendous injuries that they've suffered? Actually, you can write a new story for them and give them an opportunity to find that purpose again. Is that kind of an element that attracted you to this challenge?
100%, Kevin. I think one of the first, I am very, connect with that. 5 years ago, I took the Justin Davis with ex-rifles and then Harry, the ex-Gurkhas. Both have no legs, above amputee, above knees, double amputee. And these guys, and we climbed the Mount Blanc, 2017, I think. And, I think actually, when we obviously had 24-hour crawling, these guys are machine, 24-hour crawling, and I'm just kind of make sure they are safe and weather and all the things. We submitted, and then Justin Justin said, he said he find his purpose in life now. He don't have to living in the inner room and what people think, what people does, people, our societies are human, our perception is still work anyway. It's working either for you or against you. That's a fact. We can't stop our mind to chattering. So do the society, so do the communities. This is how human work for. And then the minute he said, right, he find a purpose and, he doesn't feel anymore sort of, I'm missing a leg. And, the guys are crying on the summit of the Mount Blanc. And I say, oh my God, and then they look at me and say, oh, we are here because of you. And minute, then I realize, this is actually, we need to change our perception about, humanity, because minute we see the, people, he's black, he's white, he's, brown, and he's amputee, he's diagnosed with Parkinson. We don't know the, people, what they are going through. We don't know their true life. We just see our perception. Can we just take a deep breath and find out as a life who they are, And then for that is that we have to, so many things we can help and support for them to come out themselves, not whatever we're not the double amputee. Oh, he's double amputee, he can't do nothing. Can we give them a chance? Can we help them what they can do? And now, these guys are now, they are in a mission, like Harry and the guy double amputee, right? We want to go to 7th summit. We want to go to Everest. And then that give me the, bigger purpose of my life, to help and support. And also it's actually good for me. I learned something, because we take granted what we can see. Also, what can, how can we walk? It takes me an hour, and then these guys are crawling for 24 hours for, like times 10. And oh my God, I know that gives me the motivation. I need to do more, I can achieve more than what I can perceive through my limited, understanding of the mindset.
There's something that I really want to ask from, I guess, a selfish point of view, because there's a lot of people who perhaps climb these incredible mountains for the label to say, I've done it. And actually, your perception on things is very internal, and what does it mean to you personally? So can you take us through, whether it's Everest or any of the other, the real, the 8,000 plus where you're in that danger zone, what is it actually like what did it mean to you when you stand at the top of those and actually go, I'm here? Because obviously you're not there for long because of obviously the dangers of it, but what is that feeling and that experience like?
I think that is a very deep question for me, because all this, people talking, like you say, you're right, a lot of still people living in the, level, and then all this, so look at me. To be honest, for me, is I tell you, I submitted. First of all, it's not about the summit or it's where you are. It's all about the planning. Every step is where you learn and you face the danger, face the challenge. This is more important than standing anywhere else. First thing. Second thing is I submitted Everest. The only reason I submitted for Everest is my family, my emotion. Even though you almost, Kevin, I think if whatever we achieve in our life, if you look into deep inside, it's more than yourself, in anything we achieve. For example, I submitted Everest because every step I was struggling, I was thinking by my daughter and my wife. This is, every step of my struggle, my emotion, my love is beyond myself. And this is the reason I submitted the Everest, and I submitted the K2 is that for my legacy, because I'm very honored and privileged to serve with my friend over the over say 17, 18 years with the S10 guys, all British guys. Those are my friend, and I'm climbing. Even though situation and surrounding environment not good, and I said I can't let down my friends, I can't let down my regiment. This is the legacy I have, so I have to put myself there for not for me, beyond myself. And I believe whatever we achieve, every one of us has a purpose to achieve or not to achieve, but every step, every struggle, you face them through not yourself, but through your love, emotion, and what you the main purpose. That's how we achieve in our life.
There's something very special in what you said there around the journey, if you like, to get to the top is the more important bit, and the more meaning that you take from it. Because we're very fortunate on this podcast to have had multiple Olympic champions on. And whenever I attend events with them where they have perhaps a younger audience who are just focused on the medal, and they say to them, what is it like holding an Olympic gold medal, or what is it like winning an Olympic gold medal or climbing Mount Everest? And the response every single time that they give is what it represents of the journey to get to that point and the people. So you'll see it in the interviews at the Olympics where they say, you've just won Olympic gold, how do you feel? And they say, the journey to get here was worth it. And I want to thank my friends and my family because that's why I'm here. So I find it fascinating speaking to somebody who is still in a world of excellence, but actually in a completely different field. And you're saying exactly the same thing. I think there's something very, very special in that.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think that's kind of, I definitely believe that.
So looking forwards, obviously you've got the challenge next year. Obviously the Everest window is relatively short. So what does the period look like between now and next spring where you're going to have a go at doing something that no one's ever done before?
Yeah, we literally, I think just literally back from the, Everest Base Camp last week. And the guys are really, really in good shape, and then they are, I think, end of the day, I think now, of course we have a physical limitation. Of course we have so much other limitation. But I think most important thing is the mindset. And in order to tap into the mindset, we have to have understanding of our own spirit, on our, how can we enhance that? That's why we were working a lot more on the spiritual path, a lot more understanding the beyond our limitation. For example, we when we're on the mountain, how the breathing helps for the acclimatization. Have you ever thought about the acclimatize with the cold? not only all the altitude, have you ever thought about the, how our mind and how our body work in a different environment? And those are the very important factor in our life in order to, so we call achieve our dream or desire, not only to be, like single focus, not, or those are emotional, we have to look into the emotional side and physical and love and families. And so once everything is all settled, then we have a free will of, achieving our dream and purpose. So for that preparation, we have got, in September, October, we're going back to Nepal, just kind of acclimatizing with the cold and the altitude and, putting the mindset there. And our cell, body, our own, body cell has to spend the time so that, it's kind of in good, positive vibe and energetic vibe. We're going to do that in September, October time, and we will going to do some of maybe in the Alps as well, ceremony for in maybe next year February March time. Then this time, we are planning for the Everest, first ever double amputees, and hope everything very very positive about it.
Well, that's something I cannot wait to follow. I've got a couple more questions before we finish off. And the first thing, especially being as in tune with everything that's going on around you, what's been the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? And who was it from?
I think my best, let's say, education is for me is as a life is definitely from the SAS, being the, what we learn, what we perceive from outside. For example, when I was in Gurkhas, like all these, people on the TV and people talk about this is the best. But actually, when you are part of that team, part of the regiment or part of SAS, they are so, they are so calm, and we all have a voice, we all listen to each other. It's actually a trust, faith. So I can go with you, I can go with him, and I'm 100%, safe, feeling myself, had a trust, for that is the biggest lesson I learned in a life, and to understand whatever people see and think outside is actually completely opposite. Whatever we think, these guys are the bravest, and of course they are. But for that is there are so other things, the culture and then the society. And the other thing is, I would say, is adaptation and flexibility. A lot of us human modern society work on timeline, work on the, like what people ought to think, oh, I need to be on time. No, everything fall in time, whatever the reason, and it's there. But are we conscious? Are we aware of the situation? Can we adapt according to the situation? Nothing gonna work the way I want it, nothing gonna work, because whole universe is, going, round, and we are expanding in a tremendous way. Nothing gonna work the way we want it. Every second, every millisecond is changing. But so do we. Are we changing? Are we adapting? Are we flexible enough according to whatever situation, like in a home with the family or in school or job? Are we flexible enough to understand, conscious, and adapt according to needs? I think this is very important for us. And then this is the only way we can ease ourselves and understand the situation and merge with the surrounding environment.
That's some fantastic advice there. And I think it comes back to that not being defined and think we can control things that are completely outside of our control. So I really, really like that. And I guess that leads into my final question, which is one that I ask every guest, and I'm really curious on this one. So if through the wonders of time travel, you could go back to the Himalayas, to your childhood self, having now and looking forwards, knowing what's coming up next year, having been on the journey with the SAS, the Gurkhas, and that whole incredible timeline to get to this point, what would you say to that 10-year-old that was just starting out?
I think that the most important thing is that we as a human, we don't evolve unidentified until the age of 24, 25 years old. So regardless, whatever we teach them, regardless, whatever, we show them, either rich, poor, good, bad, 10 years, if I honest with you, 10 years old kid is not enough, not evolved enough to achieve in their dream. I think until the age, if anything, is until the age of 20, 25, us as a human should, let them evolve, let them give them great opportunities, let them teach about not only the academic education, but teach them about life, teach them how to survive, how to explore. And then maybe after 20, 25, 26, then they can thrive and then the way they want it. I think that's probably my advice.
That's a really beautiful way to pull it all together. And I have to say, it's been the most enjoyable interview I've ever done because it's such a unique experience. There is such a small group of people in the world who have experienced all the things that you have, and your perception on it and richness of understanding of what it means to you is something that I've really enjoyed exploring. So we'll obviously include in the show notes afterwards the links to the challenge for next year and everything else that you're up to. But on behalf of the listeners and the viewers, who I'm sure are shouting at their screens right now, a huge thank you for sharing some time with us, because it's been really, really special.
Thank you, Kevin, having me on your podcast, and it's a great honor and privilege. Thank you, and namaste.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. And don't forget, we've got a back catalogue of content that goes all the way back to January 2020, including fighter pilots, Olympic champions, TV presenters, and inspiring authors. We'd really appreciate it if you can give us a quick rate and review, however you're joining us today. And if you don't want to miss out on any future episodes, make sure you hit subscribe. Our community update drops once a month, and we've got some great guest content being added, so be sure to sign up for that. And finally, we're all about inspiring and supporting as many people as possible. So if you can share this episode with one person that you think would enjoy it, that would be really, really cool. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Road Monkey Podcast.